Welcome to the realm of magic and mystery, classic horror and sci-fi. You are now entering the House of the Unusual podcast with your hosts, Eddie and Joe. Welcome all you cool ghouls and friendly fiends to the House of the Unusual podcast. I'm your host, Joe Pavlansky, coming again from an undisclosed location in the middle of a rain and thunderstorm here. So it is absolutely fantastic. And with me, as always, are my three good buddies, Eddie, Chuck, and Cheri.
Hey,
everyone, what's up?
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
Awesome. Chuck and Cheri, you guys will begin this storm probably sometime tonight, because I was looking at the weather app, and it's going southeast towards your guys' area, Pittsburgh. And
Oh yeah,
we had some high winds here, so be careful out there.
yeah. You know what? It's been getting kind of dark and it's kind of windy, and yeah, we usually get the leftovers from out where you are, Joe.
From Ohio.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if all our listeners out there, we're recording this live on Wednesday, June 1st, and it's a little bit after 7 at night, and you guys will be able to hear some of that thunder in the background, hopefully. And we got some lightning going on, and it's going to add to our spookiness of the topic tonight, because I got a great topic I want to discuss with you guys.
Ooh.
So this will be fantastic. I don't think we've touched on it yet, but before we get into it, I want to see what you guys are up to, Chuck, Cheri, and Eddie. So you know what, Eddie, we're going to start off with you this week, and give us a few minutes of what's going on with you, what's new at House of the Unusual, and what do our listeners and fans need to be looking out for?
Okay. Yeah, I got some good news, actually. I haven't really mentioned much on it because it was kind of new to me, but I came across an idea that they said in order to grow your channel much faster, YouTube has been trying to compete with Instagram and TikTok. So they created a few months ago, they created a thing called YouTube Shorts. Oh, that's a short. And it has to be videos that are one minute or less. So what I did is, having Canva and a few of the apps available, I actually started working and playing around making shorts for the channel. So
are these like shorts you could wear to the beach, or these kind of shorts are these?
They're shorts, little video clips. Like, for example, I'll say to people to subscribe, and what happens, it works just like TikTok. The only thing is on YouTube, and what happens is that it helps you increase your audience. You start getting a lot more subscribers and stuff. The only thing about it, though, is if you notice, like anybody looking at TikTok, they're scrolling up and down really quick, and as they're rolling through, they click different things. So that's kind of what shorts do. They actually do the same thing, but the only thing is, what I'm saying is, maybe the subscribers is not as valid as if they came directly to the channel itself. It's just an experiment I'm doing to see what happens. I've uploaded 50, and they're actually coming on every other day or every day. They're up to actually June 24th. I scheduled them, so they're coming together with the different shows. I also uploaded yesterday one of Chuck's special and made it live, which is the Outback Cemetery, where he went to visit his friend Al Becker, famous magician.
Oh yeah.
And that's one of those that a lot of people, for some reason, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood has gotten quite a few hits. The other thing was Chuck is still going strong with his Robert Houdin video. Yeah, it's reached almost close to 5,100 views already, or maybe surpassed it already.
All right.
Yay!
Yeah,
and,
wow.
And we also increased from what we had 1,200 some to 1,600 subscribers right now.
Great.
We're almost there. We're shy of maybe 40 subscribers for 1,600. But I mean, that's a big increase. So pretty much we're at 1.6 million instead of that, and everybody will be dancing after that.
Oh yeah.
Once we reach 1 million subscribers to our YouTube channel, we all get to level up into our new forms. Like a robot form. I think I'm gonna go in robot form. And he's gonna go into the robot monster form.
I'll tell
Yeah,
I'll tell you one thing.
There you go. And Cheri will pull you out of a hat.
There you go. I'll be the magician.
Well,
That's cute.
As I haven't really mentioned much on it because Dave Halverstadt has been doing the selling of it, but I put together back in 1918 Houdini, or I say 1915-16, Houdini started his own film company. He tried to become a Hollywood producer, and he did actually film and acted in several of his early films, in silent films and stuff. One of them was called The Master of Mystery, which was a serial. I think it consisted of, I don't remember the amount of episodes. I think it might have been like 17, 12 episodes, something like that. And in 1918, there was a Spanish newspaper that offered a handout for kids. It was actually a robot that you can cut up out of a newspaper, and you will put together like a paper model. Well, going forward in the 1980s, early 90s, some guy in Spain actually made a copy and started selling them on eBay. Not eBay, I'm sorry, they were selling them through email or something like that. But I know in 1995 or 96, it was available on eBay, I think. And, well, anyway, they've never reproduced it. So I tried my hand in making it. And I actually hired somebody that was able to look at the photograph of the thing and redrew it. So I was able to offer it, and I made it into a 24 by 18 size. It's actually a pretty heavy stock. It's kind of like white construction paper, so it's that thickness and glossy. And, I've been trying to put one together. I know Chuck tried to put one. It was kind of funny because when Chuck did it, he calls me up and says, "Hey, Eddie, it's got no hands, man." I go, "Oh, man, don't tell me. I printed so many." And then I realized he was doing it wrong. But the whole thing is I actually tried building my own, and I actually just finished it early this morning after like a week and a half of cutting it. And man, is it tough. But but it did let me know that there is a couple little things I like to do, which when I'm going to pass on to Dave as he sells them like a copy and tell them which is the arm, which is the legs, which is something that's really not mentioned in the original. But anyway, I think it's been the second time since Houdini back in 1918 that this has been made. And apparently Dave has been doing quite a few sales. Today I shipped him almost 100 pieces.
Nice.
Up to,
awesome.
He's going to start shipping them out to people and stuff. But anyway, having said that, that's what it's, we're up to. And pretty soon I'm going to see how Joe can handle building a robot because,
Joe does not do anything construction or mechanical wise. I'm going to leave that up to my good buddies Chuck and Cheri. And so, guys, what's up with you besides getting ready to build me a robot?
Yeah, you know what? We've been keeping busy, and it's been great with Cheri being retired. She's coming on shows with me, so she's a tremendous help. I mean, she's keeping me company, and she's helped packing the things away. Recently did something very unique. Cheri, I'm going to pass it to you if you want to.
Oh, okay. Yeah, for our 30th wedding anniversary, I decided to do something just a little different. So we signed up for goat yoga.
Goat yoga.
Yes. It was at a farm, and they had an area where we had our little mats, and we followed a yoga instructor. Thank you. And they had about how many goats? 6 to 8 goats, little baby, like little
kids, I think you call them.
Yeah, kids. They're cute. And they were coming around and being so cute. And Chuck wanted us to put one on his back. I could say.
Yes, I could say there's a goat on an old goat.
So that's the first time that Chuck ever tried. And he really did like it. Because
did you make him wear the yoga pants and the yoga top?
No, unfortunately, he didn't wear all that cute.
I'm a little
thank God.
I don't want to make anybody blind or something.
Oh, you did good, honey. He did good for his first time.
There was a lot of stretching, and I tell you, it did help my back. I mean, it was great. I mean, yoga's fantastic. So she showed us a few exercises.
Yeah.
Where you kind of stretch your hip a little bit, and
different things.
It certainly helped. I mean, wow, it was great.
What helped? What helped, the yoga or the goat?
I know, right?
Actually, the yoga, but the goats were cute. I mean, they would come up to you. They thought you had food, and they would let you pet them and everything, and they were just really, really cute.
Yeah, they
That's
were.
pretty cool. That sounds really relaxing.
Yeah, and then after we had the wine and cheese tasting afterwards. It was really a nice experience.
Yeah.
Oh,
Did you,
nice. Where was that at?
It was out in Butler, Valencia
okay.
area. Yeah.
I think you were going to say it was in a goat farm.
They had a lot. They have a big farm. It was huge.
Yeah.
I think they had cows and all kinds of animals.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
the goats were.
Yeah,
They were cute.
that was definitely fun. Hey, the one thing I did want to mention, what you had mentioned, Eddie, was about Harry Allbacker. I just want to tell the listening audience, yeah, if you check out, he's the guy that I credit to get me into magic. Actually, he came to my school show back when I was in 5th grade, probably 1974, and I saw him do a show. And at that time he was taking part in a local TV program called Adventure Time with Paul Shannon. And so, he was always dressed like a genie. Like that's the way he dressed, like a genie. He would wear like a hat, like a harem pants and stuff. And I tell you, he had a really cool show, for the kids particularly. So yeah, we became friends later on in life. Like after I got into magic, and he even stopped up for dinner. So once we got married, he, so he stopped by a couple times and so forth. He passed away when our first son was probably old in 1994, I believe he passed away. The one thing that I did not properly say in the video was Harry's birth date. He was born in 1925. I did make a verbal error. I said 1995 for some reason.
You're trying to make him younger.
Yeah. So he was born in 1995 and he died in
1990.
1994, so he actually -1.
Yeah.
I hope Cheri gave you your lashings for that.
Yeah, you know what? It's just I like to do these things perfect, and it's you know what? It's just we're doing so many things at once. Cheri's holding the.
I'm proofreading your notes next time.
Yeah, she's going to proofread.
There you go.
Well, the thing is just basically that maybe it might have been the goat milk you drank that wasn't too good.
There you go.
Yeah, he got the goats on the mind.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's great. Well, hey guys, that's some awesome news. Definitely the goat things. And Cheri had mentioned cows. I actually had to wrangle some cows at work last night. There was two long-haired bulls that were walking in the street grazing. They had gotten out of their pen or whatever from a neighboring township. So we had to get the owners, and I helped wrangle them in. So I would say I'm a cowboy now.
Yeah.
We'll get you a lap and you'll be in business.
Get a cowboy.
Yeah, get a cowboy hat. I mean, I'm pretty much a cowboy. I wrangled cows. What else is there? I mean,
Right.
But no, that was interesting last night. And just before we get into our topic, I want to talk real quick. Let everybody know out there that some news on the Scary Monsters magazine front. There's some really cool news that just came out a few days ago that I want to share with everybody. So issue number 126 is it's ready to go. It's out at newsstands and all that. You could order it online. Issue number 127, the Island Ghouls issue. It's available for pre-order, coming out the end of June. And also Castle of Frankenstein. They are starting off with the original numbering. So the original run ended at 35 after the original owner, and then Dennis Drucktenis, he had, I think, 2 or 3 issues, which ran into 35. Well, they're starting it off with number 36, and what's really cool about this, and so a few weeks ago, I think we mentioned it, and they weren't sure what was going on with the copyright and everything, but they were putting it out there because they were very very confident that they were going to get the copyright and everything on it. So on May 24th of this year, the people over at Scary Monsters, they were issued by the United States Patent and Trademark Office the rights to Castle of Frankenstein.
Oh, nice.
I thought was really cool. So they are full go ahead for issue number 36, which is going to come out fall of this year, and they're pre-ordering it. And it's going to be a blast. They're kind of keeping a little mum on it, I guess. Not saying too much about what's going to to be in it. You guys could go over to mymoviemonsters.com and see their little synopsis on it. It doesn't really say too much yet, because I think they were waiting to see what was going on with the trademark and everything. But they did get the trademark as of May 24th. They are the official owners of Castle Frankenstein. So, hats off to them. That's really cool news.
Joe, didn't they have it before? Because I remember them publishing way back.
There was there had been a dispute. There was a person who put out a few issues a couple years back, and there was kind of a dispute over the copyright. And I don't know all the details of it, but yeah, they ended up getting the copyright named for them. So everything's good and up on the up, and that'll definitely be coming out. And which brings me to what I was hoping we could get into talking tonight, because I was actually getting ready to do actually before the podcast. I didn't realize what time it was, because I was doing some research and writing and all that on some old time radio shows, and I had found out that one of the earliest horror hosts had come from an old time radio show. Do you guys? I mean, everyone's familiar with horror hosts on TV and all that, and we've seen him in comic books, but it was kind of fascinating to see that they actually kind of started in old-time radio shows. Do anybody out there know which radio show it is for $500?
The Shadow.
Yeah, maybe The Shadow, huh?
No, earlier.
Wow.
You got
earlier than The Shadow?
Yeah, come on, let's take some guesses.
I would say earlier than The Shadow. That's interesting. Abbott and Costello?
No.
Because they started in radio.
All right, do you guys give up?
Yeah, yes. I don't have any idea.
So one of the earliest horror hosts. Now, The Shadow, of course, they did have a host, but it wasn't considered a horror host. It was just a host. So the actual horror host, to deal with specifically horror, was called The Witch's Tale, which ran from May 21st, 1931 to June 13th, 1938. And the host of that program, her name was Old Nancy. She was a witch, and she had a cat named Satan. Are you guys familiar with this show at all?
No, I never heard of it.
No.
I heard of it. I never heard the show, but I heard of it.
Wow, that sounds pretty cool. Old Nancy. Wow.
Yeah, it's a very kind of, I guess, in the it's kind of obscure, because there's a lot of shows that are missing. What had happened is the gentleman who first started the show. I'm trying to remember his name here. Alonzo Dean Cole. So he had started the show. He had everything copyrighted and everything. He kept copies of his scripts, and he kept copies of the radio shows. Well, when he ended up moving, I think it was from like New York to California or vice versa, something like that. Well, he didn't think nobody really cared about any of the scripts or anything, and so he ended up tossing them all out. So a majority of the stuff that deals with the radio program has been lost to time. So there's only a handful of actual shows that have survived over the years. But what was also cool about the show as well is that it spun off two pulp magazines called The Witch's Tales. And those came out in November of 1936 and December of 1936. And they kind of dealt with the same type of tales that the radio program dealt with. And they were kind of, you would listen to the first 5 minutes and you're like, yeah, okay, I know what's going on. They were kind of more oriented towards, a younger crowd and everything. But the legacy that it spawned is absolutely fascinating, because it also influenced EC Comics publisher Bill Gaines. He was inspired by Old Nancy, the host, which he ended up creating the Old Witch for the Haunt of Fear comic book. I'm sure you guys are familiar with that.
Yeah.
And if anybody out there is not, just check out Haunt of Fear, the old witch. That was inspired by Old Nancy from the Witch's Tale.
Joe, if you guys have noticed, we have a guest that we were expecting to be coming on the show. You want to introduce him, Joe?
Hey, Charles, what's up?
You were talking about old witches, so I figured an old warlock would have to come on.
Absolutely, man. Hey, how's it going, man?
It's going great. I just finished a podcast talking about my horror book and the paranormal convention coming up, and I saw that you guys were on, and I wanted to say hello.
Awesome. Well, you jumped in just at the right time because we're talking about horror hosts here, and I don't know when you jumped in, but we're talking about the Witch's Tale old time radio show and how she was. A lot of people say that she was the first horror host, which was Old Nancy from the program, and she ended up inspiring a lot of horror hosts down the line, which was Bill Gaines' influence for the Old Witch for the Haunt of Fear. And then it kind of led into Melia Nurmi's Vampira, which, appeared 54 to 55. Yes. So that's kind of what I wanted to get into today is horror hosts and maybe some of your guys, because we've all grown up in, different decades here. And, just see kind of what everybody's experience was with horror hosts. Now, I remember a few, growing up in Ohio, whatever would come on, late night. You had Joe Bob. You had some different ones on there. There's some of them that I could kind of picture, but I can't remember the names because they were so far that, it was so long ago. But Joe Bob was a real big one that I watched a lot. Chuck and Cheri, did you guys have any experience or, any stories with horror hosts, from when you guys were younger?
Well, yeah. You know what? I tell you what, getting back to this Witch's Tale real quick, though, Joe, Cheri's pulling up some really cool things online here.
Yeah.
There's a book that's on Amazon called The Witch's Tale. Looks really cool, and the graphics are really neat on here. And then she pulled up some things from the actual
the pictures of Old Nancy.
Yeah, the pictures of Old Nancy. Yeah. They're really, really cool. But getting back to the actual hosting things, way back in the late 60s when I was a little kid, I caught the tail end of where the radios, like we would tune in maybe like about 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And they do the old horse sounds, like stuff like that and everything. And so that was kind of cool. But then growing up as a kid here in Pittsburgh, there was probably the original show, which is called Chiller Theater. It was hosted by Bill Cardille. Yeah. And I think he ran that from the early 60s up until about 1983, if I'm not mistaken. And you know what? He would host all kinds of cool movies, and then between, like he would do some skits and everything. It was really cool, So check that out online. Bill Cardille. He just passed away about 2 years ago here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I met him a few years ago at Monster Bash. And I'm sure Charles has too when he was there, and he really stand-up guy. I mean, just fantastic guy. Willing to shake your hand and take pictures, and talk about whatever you wanted to discuss. Yeah,
absolutely.
It was a sad passing.
Yeah, he was a fantastic guy. As a matter of fact, he is buried here in Pittsburgh. So we're going to
do one of the grave sites again, one of the videos.
Yeah, so
we've been doing.
Yeah, so sometime in the near future, we would like to stop over at his grave because I have a bunch of memorabilia from Chiller that he sent me, and it's some really cool stuff. So yeah, he was a stand-up guy. He hosted a really, really cool show for probably 20 some years.
I want to ask all you guys, because I'm sure Charles or you, Joe, might be able to answer this. But I mean, I've heard in the past, I've forgotten over time. But one of the things I wanted to bring up to your attention is we all know that the original granddaddy of monster magazines is basically Famous Monsters of Filmland, that was basically published by Jim Warren and Forrest J. Ackerman. Now, my story is this, or my question is this. What happened to Jim Warren? Like, isn't he the owner of all these magazines from Castle of Frankenstein, Creepy Magazine, and then all of a sudden they've gone all over the place, but I've never heard what exactly happened to Jim Warren and why did he lose the copyrights to all those magazines?
Yeah, I don't know too much about the copyrights and all that. Maybe Charles might know a little bit about it.
I just know that Philip Kim was a publisher out of the West Coast, and he took over Famous Monsters and tried to bring it back, for about 10 years there. Put out some great issues, but it didn't survive. It didn't have, the humor. It didn't have the old stills as the original, but it really gave it a good shot. And I think he actually got the rights from the Warren estate somehow.
I heard, what happened, I think, with him, he started with Forrest A.J. Ackerman, and then apparently he had a major dispute with him somehow that went to court and everything. And again, Forrest J. Ackerman was just the publisher, not the publisher, but the editor. He wasn't really the owner, so I don't think he was able to acquire anything from it. But I do know that somebody then took it over. They're still actually publishing Famous Monsters, and I know that Warren and him, I'm sorry, not Jim Warren. I know that Forrest J. Ackerman and that guy, I think Kim, were in court for a while, and people try to blackball the magazine because it was under Kim. I remember ads saying not to buy it.
Too bad. It gave it a good shot, and then Forrest Ackerman, I mean, he's God. He's the monster maven of all time. Just like I think if we talk horror hosts, we have to tip our hat to Zachary in New York.
Oh, absolutely.
And then I grew up in the Bronx, so Chiller Theater, watching that and watching the Six Hands come out of the swamp, and then Zachary coming up and being funny. It seems like all the horror hosts were great people.
Yeah, they were. Charles, let me ask you a question. Are you like in a room next to a grave or something? Because we're here in the background.
I'll sign out and come back.
I think he signed in twice on here.
That's what. Yeah, you
a double
twice.
Now, Eddie, when you came from Cuba, you went to the New York and New Jersey area. What was your? I mean, there's some great horror hosts that came out of that whole area. So, did you have any experience with them at that time when you came to the States?
Yeah, well, actually, the experience I had back in the day were you would have, of course, I remember Zachary very rarely, because he wasn't really that much he's earlier from the 60s. In 1968, 69, 70, he didn't really come on too much. Chiller Theater was like the main thing you would see on TV. And the other thing that did grace my area was the hilarious House of Frightenstein, which in 1973, I used to love coming home after school to watch it. And of course, that was a Canadian show.
I think I do remember that, Eddie. Yeah.
It only showed up in one season.
Yeah.
And even though in Canada has gone for like 26 seasons, I think Van Eyck or something like that was the actor that played all the parts. But I mean, I loved the show. I never forgot it. But I think they didn't really let it come in this country because of the not closure, but I'm saying the names. Like, for example, instead of Frankenstein, they were saying Hilarious House of Frightenstein. And then because of that reason, I thought as a kid it said Frankenstein. Yeah. I know that the famous Vincent Price was the narrator that they used for the show to open and close. And I mean, the show, I think, was phenomenal. It was funny. It was very kid oriented, but it was a funny show.
It was a funny show.
Today, even to get them is so hard. It's crazy. Like, you can get online, 1 or 2 or 3 episodes and pay like $50 for a DVD. But the Hilarious House of Frightenstein, again, ran for about 25 or 26 years in Canada.
Wow.
I've tried to get the entire thing. It's very hard to get it. But it was really, that's the only thing I do remember from the 70s.
Well, there's even a few current ones, right? Things, the guy from Chicago that has a rubber chicken.
Svengoolie.
Oh
Svengoolie. But he's a new guy. He just came around. He's kind of cool.
Yeah, he plays he plays some pretty good movies. I tuned in a couple of times. They're actually pretty good movies.
Well, Svengoolie, he's not that new. He came out in 71.
Yeah, he's been around a while. Yeah.
Yeah,
Really?
he's one of the longest horror hosts, if
Yeah,
not
he
the
took over.
longest.
He took over from somebody else. Didn't his father? I think he was the original one. Maybe I'm not sure. I mean, you guys know more about that than me, but he's kind of young. I think he might have taken it over.
Yeah, I don't think that's what I was going to say. I don't think 71. I never remember hearing of him. But I'm going to tell you guys one thing, though. When you look at her, even like when Elvira came around, I don't remember exactly the year. I know that in the 1980s, I went to see her film once or twice, and I was like, oh, my gosh, Elvira. But I got to tell you something, though. Zachary, I mean, the guy was really way for a long time. A lot of people don't know him from the West Coast, because he only dealt with, the East Coast of Pennsylvania area,
Yes,
New York City, but he was a phenomenal host,
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Charles, what's some of your experiences with horror hosts?
well, I do remember Joe Bob from when he was on USA Network for a few years, and I really loved his show. There's these two guys who are on now, but you have to do a little research to find them. They play a lot of these obscure horror films. It's called Graveyard Cinema, and the way to find them is to go to themonsterchannel.com.
One of our favorite places around here.
Yeah, and these two guys, my dear friend John DeBridnio and his buddy, are in character, and they show great films, and they're my favorite out there now. But Svengoolie's up there. I mean, he's been around for a while, and you might be right that he took it over from his dad or for someone else. But that name is synonymous with horror hosts, and I think there's one called Count Vidal, if I'm not mistaken, who used to help host the horror conventions, which were called Horror Find in Maryland, and they stopped having those. But those were some great shows, and he was at all of them.
You know what, Charles, is Graveyard Cinema too. That's one of my favorites. I'm gonna have to put you on the spot here. We got to get those two guys, Mad Marty and Horrible Henry, onto the show here. So
I will get them for you.
Those guys are fantastic. They are absolutely one of my favorite on the Monster Channel, and there's a few other ones out there too. But I absolutely love them. They're great. They give you some good. I mean, they give you some good tidbits of information. Before the movie, after it, and in between, they're fantastic. If nobody's seen them, just search in Graveyard Cinema. You'll find their Facebook, their YouTube, and all that stuff. And it's Mad Marty and Horrible Henry.
I am so glad you know those guys. That's awesome. Yes.
Yeah, they're really cool. And like you said, the Monster Channel, there are tons of these new horror hosts on there, and every once in a while they'll throw in some vintage ones and all that, but these new ones are just as good. I mean, if not sometimes better.
I got to put some of you guys on the spot here. And I think Charles and good possibility Chuck will remember. Do you guys remember the old, back in the school years when we were very young, Scholastic magazine?
Oh,
that they used to have a Dynamite, and there used to be a Count Morbida.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I remember.
Do you remember him, Charles?
I remember Scholastic because I would order those like crazy.
Oh, those were great.
I don't remember Count Mordox. How do you spell?
Morbid. It was like Morbidad.
Oh no!
Yeah, he came in back of Dynamite magazine, and I remember having a flexi record of him talking. He sounded just like Bela Lugosi.
Wow,
nice.
That was a really nice. I used to love reading his little comics at the end of that. But
I do remember that. That was cool. Hey, if you guys want to go. Not so much horror hosts, but more like B movies. Back when I was dating my wife, Cheri, back in about 1990, I used to come home, from doing some magic shows. I'd go up to my bedroom. I'd watch good old Gilbert Gottfried with his USA Up All Night.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic.
I mean, he was hilarious. Oh, he was hilarious. But they were all B movies, and they were so corny, but they were cool,
He just passed away?
Yeah, he just passed away,
he
right?
Passed away. That's what I was thinking of. Joe Bob was part of that Up All Night team, and there were some films on there. I went to college with this gal, Carrie Zuris, and everyone always said, well, did you ever see the film she was in? And I said, no, I never heard of it. She was never in a film. I don't believe it. Sure enough, one night at 2 a.m, in the TV guide was this film, and I don't remember the name, but right in there it said who the stars were, and one of them was Carrie Zuris. And I saw it. Up All Night gave us a lot of crazy stuff.
Oh,
there.
they were fantastic, and they would split it, between Rhonda and Gilbert Gottfried.
Oh, one of my favorites too.
Yeah,
Yes.
but they
growing
were,
up as a young teen boy during that time, she was one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, man. You know what though? But those movies were so different. They were B movies, but they were hilarious. I remember like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes and all kind of crazy movies. They were.
Yeah, you know, Chuck. I don't know about you guys, but I really gotta give it to those horror hosts, especially during the 80s and early 90s, that they were responsible for my love of these. Some people call them trash, but I call them treasures, man. Some of these movies that a lot of people wouldn't even look twice at, and I've bought multiple DVDs and magazines of them because they're so lovable. They're great movies. Yeah.
You guys are bringing me back to memory lane here.
Memories.
One of my favorite movies ever was the Abbott and Costello Hold That Ghost.
Oh yeah.
There's a part in the movie there where they're waiting for this truck to pick them up and take them. Not a truck, like supposed to be like a bus or whatever, a taxi in the time. And Costello, the lady says to Costello, "Don't you remember the Tales of Tales? I'm the one that screams in the show." And then he screams, he goes, "Oh my God!" And he jumps up in Abbott's hands. Tales of Tales, But that's, growing up and watching that stuff, that's how we get as kids, get introduced to all this famous thing. Now, if you guys remember, and I'm sure, Charles, you got to know this, back in the early 70s, like really, really 1970, 71, when Chiller Theater would come on, it would be on midnight, exactly at midnight. And the first thing that would come on at midnight would be the Frankenstein image, the face of Frankenstein. And in the background, you hear thunder. You know what? I was by the television, and I made sure that before 12, I would turn it off. If that thing came on and Frankenstein flashed, I couldn't sleep for the night. Okay? That was the worst. It used to terrify me, man.
So I grew up, there was two. There was Chiller Theater and there was Creature Features. And I can't remember which one had this great collage. It was like a medley of clips. And you would see the Colossal Man, and you would see all these great, like 10, 13 seconds of all these great B movies. And it would be the best scenes from those movies. And you would get psyched and say, when is that movie ever going to come on?
Well, you know what, Charles? You thank you for correcting me. I've been thinking Chiller. It was that other one you just mentioned. What was it? Creature Feature?
Yeah, I think it was Creature Features.
Yes, and they came in at 12, and there was a collage, and it started with the Frankenstein monster. That's what used to terrify me.
That's exactly right.
You're right. That's it. See, you corrected me. I'm glad you reminded me of that, because I kept saying Chiller, but it wasn't Chiller. Chiller would play like on Sundays, I think. But that Creature Feature, that would come in, and it would show the Colossal where the man is lifting like a bus over his head.
That's it, right?
Yep, that's the one, man. I remember that. And it would go like woo, the music, and they show the Frankenstein go. I'm gonna look that up on YouTube. It's got to be there, man.
So who remembers this horror host? Now, Chuck and Cheri, you guys might remember him because the hint is he was out of Cleveland, and he would start off every program greeting his fans with "Hello there."
Hello there.
Hello there.
I don't know.
Superhost from WUAB.
Superhost.
Do you guys remember Superhost? Well, it was more of a Cleveland, Northeast Ohio, Western Pennsylvania.
Comedian Marty Allen would say "Hello there," the one with the crazy hair. Remember?
Yeah.
Well, this was Marty Sullivan, and he was Superhost, and he looked like a if you bought a Superman doll off of Wish or something instead of Amazon, he had this red cape, a red nose, and he had a big H on his chest, and he ran from he was on WUAB channel 43 in Cleveland from 1969 to 89, and he would come on usually about noon, probably mostly on I believe it was like a Saturday or Sunday, And he would start off with some Three Stooges shorts, some Laurel and Hardy, and then he would get into his to his movies. But yeah, he was one of the other ones that I grew up with that just kind of got into my mind.
What? I think I saw pictures of him, but I don't remember him actually doing the show.
If you see a picture of him, I guarantee it'll jog your memory. Because like I said, he came out of Cleveland, but he was real big Northeast Ohio, Western Pennsylvania. I think, maybe out towards like just a little bit past Pittsburgh, he would have been.
Okay.
Joe, you sound like Super Grover from Sesame Street. That's who you remind me of, man. Come on. Hey, Charles, what do you, I know you and Chuck would have a lot to talk about. Why don't you mention to Chuck how you did those Transylvanian tours and how you brought some bones over to Joe and you gave it to him to put in his basement?
So I've been doing the Dracula tours to Transylvania since 1998, where we bring fans over to Bucharest and Brasov and Sighisoara, and you've never heard of these places, but this is where Vlad was born. Wow. This is the place where he was buried, and we combined the legend of Dracula with the actual history of Vlad the Impaler. And I've been doing it since 98. We go every year. I've been doing that forever. But 1 year early on, one of the old churches, they were doing excavating around it. It was being unearthed. And I guess there were crypts under the church, which isn't uncommon. But the bones were scattered, human bones, like all over the sidewalk. And they were just waiting to be swept away. And my friend and I look at each other. Can we save these bones? What can we do? And obviously, it was too many to save or preserve. But we took like a baggie full, and we brought it back in the States. Thank God there was no TSA as crazy as it is now, because they would say, "What are you doing with human bones?" And it's like, oops. But we brought him. There was Kevin Clement, who runs Chiller, the Expo in New Jersey, had a shop in Hackensack, New Jersey at the time, and we brought it to his store. He said, "Here, if anyone could use this, this is for you to put on display in your window." I don't think he ever did. I think he was a little creeped out by us getting human bones, thinking that he would love this stuff. I think he would have been happier if I brought him some old like posters. But yeah, that was one of the craziest things that we ever did on one of those Dracula tours.
Wow, that would be cool. Hey, if you guys ever need some spooky magic, I specialize in some really cool spooky magic. If you ever need something for your tours, let me know.
I hope you also do voiceovers, because your voice is like unbelievable.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I want to tell you guys, when a lot of you guys have forgot, when you're mentioning horror hosts and stuff, one of the earlier horror hosts used to be Vampira, which actually spun off. I think Vampira was in the 1950s. She's the one that appeared with Ed Wood.
Yeah.
That looks like Morticia, and I think Morticia, Vampirella, Elvira, all those are kind of spin-offs of the original Vampira, I think.
Yes.
She was cool. Didn't she act in the Project 9 or something? 9?
Yes,
Project 9 from Outer Space. Yes.
Yeah, that was cool. That was really neat.
Now I tell you what else is cool. If you guys could find there, it's on YouTube. It came out in 1954. Was the episode of the Red Skeleton Hour, and the episode's called "Dial B for Brush." And she's in it along with Bela Lugosi and Lon Chaney, and it is a fantastic. It's a fantastic episode. Definitely look it up. Red Skeleton Hour from 1954. Dial B for Brush.
Well, you guys are bringing up such great memories and memories while you're doing it. That's amazing.
Well, you guys, you mentioned that the original Svengoolie, Jerry Bishop, started in 1970. He passed it on to the writer, Rich Cos, as the son of Svengoolie, and he took over the show. I think it says here, by the third time the show was rebooted, because it went out of business twice before, and it came back in 1973. It was canceled in 73, later revived in 1979, and then it says here, with fan-turned-writer Rich Cos as son of Svengoolie. By the third time the show was rebooted in 1995, Bishop gave Cos express permission to just go by Stranguli, and he has ever since. So
Wow.
it's actually not his son. It was a writer that was supposedly a fan writer, and he's the one that's doing it now.
Thank you for clearing that up. Yeah, Rich, right, is correct.
I wasn't too sure about that, but the thing with Vampira, I think she died of breast cancer, if I'm correct, or something like that. But there was a time there that she was actually, I think, suing or Vira. She was suing somebody for using the Vampira thing, kind of look-alike.
I think there's a documentary on her, actually, that was done posthumously many years later.
Yeah, she was. I know that in her later years, well, in the 80s and all that, because she had passed away in 2008 from natural causes. But in the 80s and all that, with the advent of Elvira Nurmi, which was her real, Vampira's real name, Melia Nurmi, she wasn't making too much money, and she was, kind of on the back end of Hollywood and all that. So yeah, she ended up she was going through litigation and all that with Cassandra Peterson over Elvira.
Okay.
And I read about it a few weeks ago, and I can't remember the details, but it kind of just fizzled out. She didn't go along through with it.
Mm-hmm.
And Elvira ended up doing her thing and all that. But yeah, you could definitely find it online. The whole you could read articles about it on what actually happened.
Who was the actor on the Project 9? He was the bald-headed man.
Tor Johnson.
That's him. Oh my goodness, he played good in there. He was a
former wrestler.
A former wrestler from Sweden, I think, wasn't it, or something? I can't remember.
Yeah, he was from Sweden. Yeah, Plan 9 from outer space. Great. I tell you what, when I cringe when people say that that's one of the worst horror movies ever, or put it in that category, because I absolutely love the film.
Yeah, wow. Wow, those faces he made on there when he was walking, when he was a zombie, that was unbelievable. Oh my goodness, he did a really good job.
He's played in some good movies out there. Mostly B movies, and he played usually the bad guy or a wrestler or something like that.
Very, very. Man, you know what? He kind of looked like George the Animal Steele a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
You guys, when we talk about horror hosts, there was a bunch of horror hosts in the 70s and 50s. One of those, I think, was also Bob Briggs. His real name was John Bloom, and he started in running a drive-in theater.
That was the 80s he started.
I remember. And then there was Bob Wilkins. Bob Wilkins was like a normal guy with a cigar. And he'd come on right before the movie. That sounds
familiar. Yeah.
And then there was one that looked like the guy from this one with this thing Back to the Future, the guy who plays the doctor there. He's wild. His name is Sidney Noel Rideau, and he was Dr. Morgus, and he was from like the New Orleans area, and he played a mad scientist. I remember that in early and I saw him once or twice. The guy I just mentioned right now, Sidney Noel Rideau or something like that. When I was watching, see, back in the 1970s, and again, Chris, you'll know this very well, do you remember WHT Wameka Home Theater when it came on in the 1970s, early 1970s, that you could subscribe to it, and it had nightcap films, it had all this stuff, and it was an answer to people who didn't want to have HBO because they didn't want to have wires in the house. The way Wameka Home Theater worked was it was like a tabletop, a TV top box, and it had a little antenna next to the box, and it was $19.95 a month, and you would get movies. And when I had that in Upper Manhattan, in the area I grew up in, Washington Heights, that guy would come on Sundays. And I remember that I saw like once or twice, if I'm correct, Sundays or Saturdays, that he looked like a mad scientist and he would play the part. That was another host that I kind of was a memory right now looking at some of the pictures. Do you remember that at all, Charles?
No, but I do remember that pay TV, because I remember going to the movies, and I grew up in the Bronx, and all these theaters had these signs. Do not support pay TV. Don't pay for your TV. Either get it free or come to the movies. Theaters were really scared.
They were scared.
And this was before HBO or Showtime or any of the pay channels as we know it. Forget Netflix and streaming. That was the first of the pay TV, and movie theaters were scared, you know what, list, because they thought it was going to put them out of business.
Oh yeah,
and
they were scared.
you know what? When you lived in Manhattan, if you lived in Lower Manhattan, they had Manhattan cable TV, and if you live in Upper Manhattan, like in where I was in Washington Heights, they had Telepronto cable TV, and WHT came in and left within maybe a 5-year period. The thing that was interesting about WHT was that, you know, when we look at today, they have satellite antennas and they're huge, and you need, in order to get satellite TV, a dish on your house. I still have, and I can tell you this, one of those original WHT boxes. In fact, I wish I could find it to show you guys. The antenna that was on that little thing looked exactly like, let's say, those white plastic hangers for your closet. It was like a little hanger coming out where the knob was, and it had, like, for example, 1 or 2 or 3 little things that went across it. So it looked like a T with like 3 things. It looks like one of those electrical poles.
Oh, I know.
Go out on the highways. And let me tell you, it was no bigger than maybe 8 inches. I don't understand how you could, in the 1970s, put that thing on your television, watch cable through satellite, and not have an antenna outside of your house.
Eddie, what you don't know is that the aliens were monitoring you through those.
That's a possibility. I forgot that. That's maybe why I turned the way I was. And I got so many products.
I'll tell you guys a pretty funny story. In 1979, I was in high school. I was about 16 years old, and my parents said, "Okay, we're going to get cable." Okay, but then the cable guy shows up, and no one was home except me. You know, don't leave a 16-year-old kid home, because I said, "Yeah, go ahead, put in HBO, put in all this stuff." You know what? Yeah, so my parents come home. I'm watching all these crazy movies. They were so mad. They said, "Are you crazy?" I mean, the bill would have been like $95 back in, like per month back in 1979.
Oh, that's a lot of money then.
Yeah, they almost died. You know.
Well, you know what I did back in the day? You would have, the way they worked was, up in the roof of the buildings, they would put filters. Like, you had 3 or 4 filters that would prevent the channel from going through. So if you wanted to watch, say, HBO, the channel would come through, but a line would be through the middle, and it would be distorted with all this stuff. So you had to remove the filter in order to watch it. So over time, people would get a hammer. They had this magnetic locks on them. Hit the magnetic lock, break it off, remove the filters, and then you got free cable.
Crazy.
And I remember watching. There used to be a channel called Uptown that was only in New York City, and I'm not going to get into what shows were on it, but it was so funny. I used to get the cable box was from channel 2 to 13. But here's the funny thing: we had cable back in 1968 in Manhattan. New Jersey didn't have cable until like maybe the mid 70s, early 80s. That's the so funny thing about it.
Yeah.
And,
well, here in Connecticut, I think we got it 3 years ago, so we're really behind. Guys, I want to thank you for bringing me on and letting me do a cameo with you. I got to run, but thank you so much.
Yeah, hey, Charles, thanks for stopping by, man. Anytime. Always great to talk with you, man. Take care.
Yeah, Charles.
Charles, the show is almost over in 2 minutes.
No way.
Yeah.
The way you guys were on a roll, I thought we were going till midnight.
Yeah, we got about 8 minutes left, so it's up to you if you want to stay or bounce.
I'll stay with you if I can plug my my book.
Sure,
absolutely, man. Let us know. Give us a quick plug for it.
100 celebrities gave me their top 10 favorite horror lists, and it came out in the book of top 10 horror lists, which is bookofTop10horrorlists.com. People from like William Shatner and one of the Beatles, one of the Monkees, one of the Munsters. It's just on and on. It's a great pop culture book, and you can get it on Amazon. And that's all I want to plug, because I'd be going on forever if you gave me all the things to plug, you know.
Nice.
That's all right. But hey, we talked a lot tonight about horror radio and horror hosts and all that. And so I want to give everyone out there, a movie to watch for the week. This is your homework for the week. You got to find this movie and watch it. It is if B movies watched B movies, this would be the movie that they would watch, and it's called The Slime People from 1963.
Slime people.
I saw
Out
it
there.
when it came out, and I haven't seen it since.
Well, this is everybody's homework for the week. So just a little bit on the slime people. It did come out in 1963. It was directed by Robert Hutton, and it was distributed by Donald J. Henson Enterprises, and it had a budget of $56,000 approximately. And over the years, it's become, I guess you could say, a kind of a cult classic. There's been a lot of these, higher up authors and film critics have given this movie terrible reviews. But a lot of people like us that love B movies and love monster movies.
Oh, hey, you know what could even be cooler than your movie, Joe? Well, I've been talking to a couple of people, Joe, so you have to tell me when that day is going to be. But for our 100th episode, I was thinking of going live, doing it over Zoom, and this is the people that have agreed to be on, Zara Carlo.
Wow.
I don't know if Mr. Charles Rosenay here would like to be on. I would
Definitely.
And we can do this. And you know what, man? Chuck and everybody will be live.
That would
we'll
be cool.
Able to see the monsters in each of us.
Yeah.
So those that are hiding their face from the world will be able to disclose who they really look. And finally, we can get an idea who the person behind that scream, that scream from the House of the Unusual, that face of terror looks like in real.
Love it.
Well, from what I'm looking at on our thing, not including the year wrap ups or best ofs that were put out. This would be, when this one comes out, it'll be our actual 98th original episode. I think we have 2 on there that are kind of like a best ofs or a wrap up that were put on there. I'll have to check. So I believe this is going to be our 8th one. And before we wrap it up and let out there know, check us out on YouTube. We talked a little bit about it in the beginning. Our YouTube channel is continuously growing. Eddie and Chuck are putting out some great things. We now have shorts on there, and they're not the kind you wear to the beach. I found out they're little, less than a minute clips like you would find on TikTok or whatnot. There's a forum up there that people are always posting some cool stuff on there. Their collections. You could discuss. So let us know some things that you want to talk about, and if you want to be a guest, that is the place to let us know. You could also find podcasts on there. We're pretty much on every and all podcast platforms. So whatever your favorite one is, check us out on there. Podcast. Give us a good review if you so choose to, because that definitely helps us out. And we have some big things coming up in the future here. Etsy.com, House of the Unusual. We have Chuck Caputo's handmade magic sets. There's only a few available. There's 2 or 3 available, of only 8 made. These are professional kits out there. You guys want to get your hands on them because so they're going to be worth millions and millions of dollars. So get on there and grab them, man. I mean, get on there. What are you waiting for? Grab them.
The most important part, Joe, is that we can have anybody as a guest. We do this. We don't have fancy equipment. We refuse to do that because we couldn't be able to do the way we're doing it.
Yeah.
Remember, Joe has a storm. Everybody's having a storm. So
yeah, I'm just glad we made it through this podcast with.
Hey guys, we got to head out here. So everybody's got your homework for the week. The Slime People 1963. Next show you on it. Make sure you watch it. And if you don't, Cheri's going to give you lashing. And ask Chuck, because when he up on the video, he got 20 lashings. So.
I thought it was.
That's all we got for tonight. Thanks everybody for coming on, and good night,
everyone.
Thank you. God bless.